Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to cut through the noise and get you informed fast. And this week, Washington certainly gave us something to talk about. A really big move in the Senate.
Yeah, they took a pretty significant step to clear out this huge backlog of presidential nominees. We've heard a lot about this lately. Many Republicans have been calling it, persistent delays, Democratic obstruction, right? Creating a real bottleneck for getting key people into executive branch jobs. And think about this stat. Over the last 6 administrations, the average time it takes to confirm a nominee, it's almost quadrupled. Jumped from, 49 days on average?
All the way up to 193 days.
193 days. That's a long time. It really slows things down, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. A serious drag on just the basic functioning of government.
So Senate Republicans, led by Majority Leader John Thune, they basically decided enough was enough. They used this powerful procedural tool, you've probably heard it, called the nuclear option.
That's the term everyone uses. And the outcome, a 51-47 vote. And just like that, boom, 48 lower-level non-judicial Trump nominees confirmed, all at once.
Quite a move.
Thune was pretty clear about why. He said it was about fixing a broken process, making sure the president can actually enact his agenda, trying to bring back some efficiency where, partisan fights had just created gridlock.
Essentially cutting through the delays to get these positions filled.
Right. Stop the process from holding the government hostage, you could say. So ever wonder how Washington gridlock actually gets unstuck sometimes? Well, this week, the Senate showed us one way, a very powerful and definitely not quiet way. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into exactly that, the nuclear option. We'll unpack what it is, how it works. It's pretty dramatic history in the Senate and what exactly happened this week, and crucially, why it matters for how Washington works and, what it means going forward.
It's quite a name, isn't it? Nuclear option. Really grabs your attention.
It definitely does.
But it refers to something very specific, legislatively speaking. Senator Trent Lott, he actually coined the term back in 2003. He called it a last resort with possibly major consequences for both sides.
A last resort.
Essentially, it lets the Senate majority override a standing rule. The big one is the 60-vote threshold you usually need to end debate on something that's called cloture. This lets them do it with just a simple majority vote, 51 votes, basically.
So it's like a shortcut, a way for the majority to bypass a rule without actually rewriting the official rule book. Seems tricky.
That's a good way to put it. Procedurally, it's quite clever, though. Definitely controversial. Here's how it works, roughly. A senator raises a point of order saying, hey, this rule is being applied wrong in this situation. The presiding officer, usually bound by precedent, would likely say, no, the rule stands. But then that ruling from the chair gets appealed. And here's the key part. If the vote on the appeal itself isn't subject to debate, which votes on cloture aren't, then the appeal is decided by a simple majority. If the majority votes against the chair's ruling, well, that sets a new precedent.
So it effectively changes how the rule works from then on, even though the written rule is the same.
Exactly. It's a fast way to get around an obstacle. Now, proponents, they often prefer the term constitutional option.
Constitutional option. Why that?
Their argument is that the Constitution generally implies majority rule in the Senate, unless it specifically says otherwise, for ratifying treaties. So they frame it as restoring the Senate's ability to act by simple majority, upholding constitutional principles, in their view.
Interesting framing.
Yeah.
Still, nuclear feels pretty apt given the potential fallout. So why now? What pushed them to actually use it this week?
Yeah, good question. I mean, this definitely didn't just pop up overnight. It came after weeks where negotiations with Democrats over confirming nominees just completely broke down.
Right, I remember reading about that.
And the Republican motivation, they were very clear on this. They pointed to what they called historic obstruction from Democrats, accusing them of using stalling tactics, and that these tactics created this massive backlog. You mentioned the number earlier.
Yeah, 173 pending nominations was it? That's huge.
Exactly. And that leads back to the stat you gave at the start, that average confirmation time jumping from 49 days to 193.
It really paints a picture of, a system grinding to a halt.
It does, and Republicans argued it just wasn't sustainable if an administration wants to actually govern, to implement its policies. Majority Leader Thune said it plainly. The goal was to fix a broken process, to get back to the long-standing practice of confirming nominees efficiently, often in batches.
And he tied it directly to the president's agenda, right?
Yes, he stressed getting President Trump's team in place to enact his agenda. It underscores the majority's desire for the executive branch to function effectively, not be hamstrung by vacancies.
Makes sense from their perspective. But obviously, these things are never one-sided in Washington. What was the Democratic reaction? Minority Leader Schumer, I imagine, had thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Leaders like Chuck Schumer immediately called it a power grab. That was the term they used.
The power grab. Okay.
Their argument was that this move allows potentially unqualified nominees to escape scrutiny, that it weakens the Senate's role.
How so?
They argue it risks turning the Senate into just a rubber stamp for the president instead of providing meaningful advice and consent like the Constitution outlines. They see it as chipping away at the Senate's deliberative function.
So, starkly different views on the same action. Not surprising, I suppose. Let's get into the specifics of this vote, then, the one this week. What did it actually do?
Okay, so the vote itself was 51-47, and that confirmed the first group, 48 nominees. But it's important to be clear about the scope. These new, faster rules, set up by using the nuclear option, they apply only to lower-level, non-judicial executive branch nominees.
Ah, okay. So not for cabinet secretaries or federal judges.
Correct. Those high-level cabinet posts, and especially lifetime judicial appointments, they still operate under different rules or different precedents set by previous changes. And Thune also made a point of saying that all 48 nominees in this first batch, they had already gotten bipartisan support in their respective committees.
That's interesting. So these weren't necessarily the most controversial picks?
Apparently not, at least not at the committee stage. He mentioned folks like deputy secretaries for Defense, Interior, and Energy were in that group. Important roles, definitely.
Can you give us a feel for who else got confirmed, just to make it more concrete?
Sure. These are positions that really keep the government machinery running day to day. For instance, Jonathan Morrison, he's now the administrator of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA. That's huge for vehicle safety, impacts everyone who drives.
Very practical impact there.
Then you have some more, let's say, high-profile names. Kimberly Guilfoyle was confirmed as U.S. Ambassador to Greece.
Ah, yes. Former prosecutor, TV personality, involved in Trump's campaign fundraising.
That's her. And Callista Gingrich, wife of former Speaker Newt Gingrich, she was confirmed as U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland.
So, important diplomatic posts, too.
Definitely. These confirmations fill key administrative and diplomatic roles. The immediate impact is clear. The administration can get these people into their jobs faster, breaking that logjam we talked about.
And the expectation is more confirmations will follow using this same process.
Exactly. Republicans have said they plan to confirm more groups, more tranches of nominees in the coming weeks. The goal seems to be clearing out that big backlog.
Okay, so this week's move feels dramatic, but you mentioned earlier, this isn't exactly unprecedented, right? This whole nuclear option thing has a history.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely not the first time. This week's events are really just the latest step in what some analysts call, a dozen years of gradual changes by both parties to weaken the filibuster, specifically for nominations.
A dozen years. So it's been building for a while.
It has. The term itself popped up back in 2005. Republicans, under Majority Leader Bill Frist then, were threatening to use it for President George W. Bush's judicial nominees.
And did they?
No, not then. Democrats fought it hard, and this bipartisan group, the Gang of 14, they actually brokered a deal. They compromised to keep the filibuster for judges, but only for extraordinary circumstances. It sort of kicked the can down the road.
A temporary truce, it sounds like. When did the option actually get used first?
That was 2013. This time, it was the Democrats, led by Majority Leader Harry Reid. They pulled the trigger. They used the nuclear option to lower the vote threshold to a simple majority for most executive nominees and lower court judicial nominees.
But not the Supreme Court.
Not then. They explicitly left the Supreme Court filibuster intact, their reason at the time. They felt Republicans were obstructing President Obama's nominees too much, especially his picks for the D.C. Circuit Court.
So, payback, essentially. Or leveling the playing field, depending on your view.
You could frame it either way. But the cycle didn't stop there. In 2017, it was the Republicans' turn again. Mitch McConnell was majority leader. They extended that simple majority rule to Supreme Court nominations.
That was for Justice Gorsuch, right?
Yeah.
After the Democrats filibustered him.
Precisely. And then again, in 2019, Republicans tweaked the rules further. They cut the debate time after cloture's invoked for those lower-level nominees down to just 2 hours. Again, citing Democratic delays as the reason.
Wow. It really is this back and forth tit-for-tat cycle. Each side uses the tool when they're in power, often citing the other side's previous actions.
It really is. And it's almost uncanny how history repeats. You mentioned Schumer's warning to Republicans this week that they'd come to regret this.
Yeah.
Well, McConnell said almost the exact same thing to Harry Reid back in 2013 when the Democrats went nuclear. It just shows how these precedents get set and then used by whoever holds the majority later.
It's kind of sobering, really, this constant chipping away at Senate traditions and rules. So let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here for us, for how our government works? This nuclear option, it's more than just Senate jargon, isn't it? It feels like it's fundamentally changing the Senate.
I think that's fair to say. It has undeniably shifted more power to the majority party, at least when it comes to confirming nominees. It makes it much easier, much more efficient for them to staff the executive branch and push the president's agenda forward.
Efficiency sounds good, but is there a downside?
Well, that's the big debate, isn't it? While it speeds things up, ensures the president can get their team in place, which proponents argue is vital for effective governance. It definitely raises serious questions. Questions about the long-term balance of power, about the role of the minority party in the Senate. Their ability to act as a check or force compromise seems diminished, at least in this area.
Right. The Senate was often seen as the cooling saucer, the place for deliberation.
Exactly. And it leads you to wonder, are more changes like this coming? Could we see similar moves to, say, eliminate the filibuster for legislation altogether? It really forces you, the listener, to think, what kind of Senate do you think is best? One built primarily for speed and majority action, or one that preserves more power for the minority, even if it means slower progress sometimes?
That's a really provocative thought to end on. It's clear these procedural battles have deep consequences well beyond Washington. They shape how responsive, how deliberative, and ultimately how effective our government can be. Something definitely worth keeping an eye on.